It's so great to have you with us on a very busy morning here. The world is awaiting Israel's next move following Iran's unprecedented attacks on the country with hundreds of missiles and drones. It comes less than 2 weeks after top Iranian military officers were killed in a strike on Iran's consulate in Syria.
The attacks sending President Biden back to the White House early from his weekend retreat in Delaware. The administration again pledging unwavering support for Israel, using that word ironclad. G7 leaders holding a video conference this afternoon. We'll speak live in just a moment with the president's national security spokesman.
And the IDF saying it shot down 99% of the drones and missiles. The U.S. also saying it helped with dozens of interceptions. This is Iran's first ever direct military attack on Israel. It's a major escalation, and we've got team coverage, of course. We begin here with ABC's Britt Fledit in Jerusalem. Good morning, Britt. You were hearing those sirens for much of the night.
Yeah, good morning, Gio. Yeah, it was a tense and long night here in Jerusalem after that massive attack from Iran. We saw explosions peppering the sky from all angles, air raid sirens blaring out, and residents urged to take shelter. This as for the first time ever, Iran carried out strikes against Israeli territory.
Israel this morning saying it thwarted a major attack overnight from Iran with the help of the US. The first ever strikes directly from Iranian soil on Israel. Iran launching a barrage of more than 300 missiles and attack drones, most shot down by the IDF and US before entering Israeli territory, but not all. Explosions lighting up the night sky over Jerusalem. The sound of emergency sirens piercing the air, warning people to seek shelter from the ongoing assault. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu with a message on social media this morning. We intercepted, we blocked, together we will win. Last night, Netanyahu saying we are prepared for any scenario, both in defense and attack. The IDF saying they intercepted the majority of the projectiles with over 90% success rate. One Arab-Israeli girl was critically injured in an attack in southern Israel.
This is a severe and dangerous escalation. Our defensive and offensive capabilities are at the highest level of readiness.
U.S. armed forces helped to shoot down dozens of objects launched at Israel, according to ABC sources. The U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem lifting its shelter-in-place order, saying that the threat from missiles and drones has diminished. Iran says its attack was to avenge Israel's strike near an Iranian consulate in Syria last week, leaving 16 people dead, including 2 generals of the Revolutionary Guard. People seem celebrating in the streets of Tehran amid Iran's assault on Israel. President Biden scrapping his weekend plans to return to the White House, seen here meeting with his national security team in the Situation Room. Biden also reaffirming his pledge to help Israel in their defense, hopping on a call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, telling him overnight Israel demonstrated a remarkable capacity to defend against and defeat even unprecedented attacks. The leaders of the G7 meeting later today over video conference to coordinate a response to this weekend's attack.
The world is now waiting to see what Israel's next move will be. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu convening the war cabinet in just a few hours to discuss their response. And Iran with a warning to the US to not take part in any retaliatory strike. Guys,
so much to continue watching. Britt, thank you for that. And we continue our coverage from Israel with a look at what residents experienced on the ground overnight. Josh Eininger from our New York station, WABC, is in Jerusalem. Josh, good morning. We heard Britt there say that you saw explosions, heard the air raid sirens.
It was quite an experience, Janae. Good morning to you. I'm standing in front of the old city here in Jerusalem. These old, thousands-year-old buildings still standing. Everything's still standing, which is quite a relief for people who've emerged from their shelters today. You know, they did have days to prepare for what might come. There was a bit of a run on grocery stores. And then a few hours before this happened, the Israel Home Front Defense issued a warning closing schools and canceling large-scale public activities. And then there was, of course, hours to prepare, but nothing could prepare you for the light show in the sky that we saw here over the old city in Jerusalem. From this vantage point, we saw about 10 to 12 projectiles streaking through the sky. We then saw the Iron Dome defense system take them out one after another. We all went to shelter, our team of 3, along with other people in the hotel we're staying. We were in a staircase. We went down to the basement, and when we got the all clear, we came back upstairs. We heard more explosions, and we turned and looked at the old city, and we saw over the vicinity of the Al-Aqsa Mosque fireworks. Clearly supporters of the Iran regime cheering after this unprecedented attack last night. Whit.
Josh Einiger for us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And joining us now from Washington is National Security Council spokesman John Kirby. John, good morning to you. It's always great to have you. So Israel and the U.S. have been expecting a response from Iran, but this was unprecedented. Was the administration surprised in any way by the scale of this attack?
It absolutely was a massive air attack that Iran launched on Israel. We've been watching as closely as we could the intelligence picture. We had a pretty good indication of the size and the scale and the scope of what Iran was planning, and that is why, because we had a good sense of what they were going to do and with how much, that's why we were able to really help Israel knock down almost everything that Iran threw at them.
And John, we know that President Biden and Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke over the phone last night, and there is a report that Biden told Netanyahu that the U.S. will oppose any Israeli counterattack against Iran. Can you confirm that's what was said, and what other context could you provide for that conversation?
That's not an accurate reading of the conversation. The president understands the prime minister runs a government for a sovereign state of Israel, and that they'll decide whether and how they're going to respond to what Iran did last night. We respect that. But again, the president's message to the prime minister was that he knows that the United States stands with Israel. There wasn't just the United States. Other countries also helped Israel defend itself last night. That Israel demonstrated a superior military capability to what the Iranians threw up against them. And that, of course, as we've said many, many times, we don't want to see the situation escalate further. We're not looking for a war with Iran.
So then, do you expect Israel will strike back directly in Iran, and what's the U.S. role now going forward?
I won't speak for the Israelis. That's going to be up to them to decide whether and how they'll respond to this. They showed last night an incredible military capability on their own, but certainly in concert with friends. They also showed Iran that Israel does have friends, that there was a coalition that helps them support themselves. That alone is significant, and of course the damage was extremely light. Again, showing how unified the United States and Israel are in Israel's self-defense.
And Iran warned the U.S. to stay out of this conflict, and yet we saw our assets taking down missiles and drones in the skies. Is there a concern now from the administration that Iran could respond with an attack on the U.S. or U.S. assets?
The president also made clear in that statement last night that he'll do whatever he has to do to protect our troops and our facilities, our people in the region, and we will do that. And we have sent a very clear signal to Iran, privately and publicly, that any attack on our troops and our facilities will have consequences. We're very serious about that. We have not seen any specific threats to our personnel or our facilities, but we're going to stay vigilant to that, absolutely. But when it comes to defending Israel, again, the president has been very, very clear. Israel is a good friend and an ally, and our commitment to them is ironclad to commitment to helping them defend themselves, and we showed that last night.
You know, and our viewers might be wondering,
stick y'all 2 cents in other people's business, but if they come and stick their 2 cents in y'all business, y'all getting y'all feelers. It's crazy.
Wider scale war in the Middle East.
Mind y'all business.
Well, it's important to remember that our troops are in the region largely to go after ISIS, and that ISIS in Iraq, ISIS in Syria. That's why they're there. And now we added additional forces to the region since October 7th to help with the defense of Israel and to help the defense of commercial shipping in the Red Sea. So largely what we're doing, with the exception of the mission against ISIS, which is an active mission, we're largely in a defense role in the Red Sea, in the Gulf of Aden, and in the Eastern Mediterranean. That is what we're there for. We're going to obviously be vigilant to any potential threat to our forces in the region, but the president has been clear. We are not looking for a wider war. We're not looking for a second front or a third front. We're not looking to see escalation, and we're certainly not looking for a war with Iran. Iran responded in an
But y'all supporting
unprecedented way.
Israel.
Israel
Make it make sense.
Defended in a truly unprecedented, remarkable way.
I hit you,
We
but
don't
you
wanna
can't
see
hit
this
me back.
situation
Get the fuck
escalate
out of
further.
here.
Yeah, the world is watching to see what happens next. John Kirby, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
it.
Janae.
All right. Well, now to ABC News contributor Colonel Steve Ganyard, who joins us. Steve, thank you so much for being with us. Your extensive military experience, based on what you just heard, John Kirby there saying they don't want this conflict to spread further. But what's your feeling about whether that happens?
Well, Jay, Iran doesn't actually have a lot of friends in the world. The Chinese and the Russians have been helpful in various ways, but in the region they really don't have many friends. Most of the Gulf countries, the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Kuwaitis, they don't like Iran much either. So it's hard to see how it would spread much farther. The real key here is the gloves have been dropped. So it's no longer a shadow war between Israel and Iran. Iran is now going to be vulnerable to Israeli counterattacks, and they are indeed vulnerable. Israel has a much better ability to project power. The Israeli Air Force can own the airspace over Iran. The ships at sea and submarines that Israel has make most of the Iranian shipping and navy vulnerable. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Iran or how Israel reacts to this and what they're able to do. I don't think that they need to rush it. They have some time to think about it and pick the targets, but I do think there will be some sort of response from Israel going forward.
Yeah, okay, so we will be watching for a potential response. In terms of the weapons that Iran used, you heard John Kirby there call it a massive air attack. Just how forceful was this?
Yeah, it really, really was remarkable. I think everybody was caught off guard about how many weapons that Iran actually launched at Israel. And if you think about it, Janae, the intercepts of these weapons were done from, say, 100 feet off the ground all the way to the edge of space. That's a remarkable defensive military technology achievement. Much of it was either funded by the U.S. or U.S. technology. Note that almost 1/4 of the weapons that were intercepted last night were done by U.S. forces. Jordanian forces helped out. We believe that maybe the Saudis and the Emiratis may have helped out. So the UK helped out. So there was all sorts of help here for Israel, but a remarkable achievement to have really only one person wounded after almost 330 weapons launched from Iran.
So an unprecedented attack, but relatively minimal damage. So Steve, was this attack calibrated to send a message or really to do damage?
Yeah, the Iranians had been warned to not escalate the situation, maybe to do something that was just at least a notional payback to Israel. This is why I think most people were caught unawares that 300 weapons were launched. That is beyond just a message. That was a true intent to hurt Israel. And so I think that was the surprise here, and I think that the Iranians can't be surprised when the Israelis retaliate in kind.
All right, Colonel Steve Ganyard, thank you so much for being with us this morning to add that context. Gio.
All right, Janae, and all of this could have a major impact on the markets and oil prices. ABC's Alexis Christophers is here tracking that part of the story. Good morning, Alexis.
Good morning, Gio. Unrest in the Middle East has Wall Street on high alert. Investors are bracing for another spike in oil prices and a possible stock sell-off when the opening bell sounds on Wall Street tomorrow. Stocks were already in sell-off mode last week in anticipation of Iran's attack against Israel. Stocks had their worst week of the year, while oil prices climbed to a 6-month high, topping $90 a barrel, a level not seen since the early days of the Israel-Hamas war. Analysts are now predicting oil prices above $100 a barrel as turmoil in the Middle East threatens oil supply in the region, putting key shipping routes in jeopardy and potentially sending gas prices and inflation soaring. It was just weeks ago stocks were rallying to record highs on hopes the Fed would deliver 3 interest rate cuts this year. Those hopes were dashed after new reports confirmed inflation is back on the rise. And now the risk of a wider regional war in the Middle East is pressuring global stock markets, sending investors running to the relative safety of bonds, gold, and the U.S. dollar.
Something else to watch in all of this. Alexis, thank you. We appreciate it. Turning now to other news this morning and the historic case getting underway tomorrow in New York.